There you go.
Good afternoon and welcome to the second part of our sports show. As you know, we premiere each week an ongoing international event that is available for all our listeners and our audience to look at in terms of the sports entertainment. And this week, we are delighted to announce it's the first pay-per-view for Impact Wrestling of 2023. It's on January the 13th, Friday the 13th in Atlanta, Georgia. It can be viewed on FITE TV for all our audience and all our listenership here in Ireland. It's Impact Wrestling Hard to Kill, a full feature of stack including Josh Alexander versus Bully Ray for the TNA Impact Wrestling Championship, Jordan Grace versus Mickie James for the Knockout Championship. If Mickie James loses, she's forced to retire. The Impact World Tag Team Championships are on the line. The Machine Guns versus Heat and Rhino versus the Major Players versus Austin Race and Chris Bay. Joe Hendry faces Moose for the TV title. Jonathan Grisham versus Eddie Edwards. And our special feature tonight, we're going to focus on the Knockouts Contenders, number one Contenders match. It features Killer Kelly versus Deonna Purazzo versus Masha Slamovich versus our special guest here tonight, just recently back joined Impact Wrestling, the one and only Taylor Wilde. Taylor, good day to you.
Thank you. Wow, what an intro. Well done.
Well done. Taylor, first of all, back in Canada, back in Impact Wrestling after 10 years in terms of the wilderness. Is it good to be back? Do you feel excited as the first time you were in the ring back in the early 2000s, or does it almost feel different this time?
Oh, no, it's incredible to be back. And yeah, of course it feels different because I've been on this incredible 10-year journey. I've collected a few divorces. I've had a son. I've been a firefighter for almost 9 years. And for all the fans to Impact Wrestling or my podcast Wilde On or any of my social media, they've seen that I've transitioned from this squeaky clean babyface version of Taylor Wilde to the dark feminine Taylor Wilde, Wild Witch, the People's Witch. So it's definitely been an evolution, but I am in total alignment and authentic to who I am.
And Taylor, in terms of this gap, did you stay in touch with wrestling or did you make a complete break? Did you sort of stay as a fan? Did you watch? Did you go to events? Did you sort of in your hometown? Did you stay in travel? Did you stay in contact with some of the female wrestlers that you had made friends with throughout the years? Or did you try and make a complete clean break from the industry?
I definitely kept in touch with all my girlfriends because I had known these girls since I was 17, 18 years old. And I'm so proud of all of them. They've done incredible things, whether it's with TNA or now Impact, AEW, WWE. But I definitely took a good few years off and completely did a clean break from wrestling because I needed it. I was totally burnt out. But, you know, you can't stay away from wrestling forever. It's in your blood. It's in your DNA. So I did whenever, you know, Raw, SmackDown, AEW, Impact were in town, I always went to the shows. And it was never at that time for my own interest. I just wanted to see my chosen family. And then, you know, as time does go, you eventually end up back in wrestling, even when it takes 10 years.
And Taylor, I'm sort of intrigued in terms of that sort of gap, because obviously back in the 2000s, you had your sort of own sort of move set, your own sort of what you did in terms of the ring. And obviously you took an awful lot of time out. You obviously watched an awful lot. Did you come back and try and sort of come back with the sort of same sort of move set, or did you try and invent new moves? Did you try and add more to your resume in terms of your in-rings, what you like to produce while you're inside the ring? Did you feel that, yeah, I want to mix it up now, this time I'll come around, not just the same what I did before, I want to add more weapons to my arsenal, as the saying goes?
Sure. Yeah. So when I originally came back and I was just, you know, the same version of Taylor Wilde, I kept to the same moveset. And then as I was kind of getting a little bit darker, more rock and roll, I was starting to change my repertoire. And then, of course, with the evolution of this new character and with age and with experience and being a veteran, it's not about being high flying and flippy. It's more methodical. It's more ground and pound. It's more submissive or submission based. And it's the opposite of submissive. It's definitely different. It's different, but it's very true to who I am as a person and as a character now.
Mm. I suppose, Taylor, we're seeing this sort of character sort of base. We saw with Rosemary, we saw it there with Alexa Bliss is a great in version of it in WWE with that sort of this sort of Joker, sort of Suicide Squad type character that she's sort of playing, that sort of witch type doll with the Bray Wyatt sort of faction. And you obviously saw something in that element, in the sort of darker arts, that sort of witchcraft element. And is that something, were you always intrigued growing up as a youngster with the whole idea of fantasy and sci-fi and Halloween and dressing up and the sort of the darker arts? Is that where it sort of came to you in terms of this sort of witchcraft sort of element, this sort of character? Had you a genuine interest, dare I say, in all that?
Yeah, so anyone that follows me on my social media, they know that witchcraft and spirituality is part of who I am. Like, this is not a gimmick for me. That's the biggest difference between what you're seeing in any other kind of darker, kookier character. Is this is just me turned up to 1,000. I bought my first tarot deck, my first oracle deck, when I was 12 years old. I had many paranormal experiences when I was a child. So naturally, I was just always attracted to the darker arts, to the occult, to counterculture, to metal music. And then when I was in my early teens and The Craft came out, and it was these like grungy girls that were into witchcraft and they were teenagers, I thought, oh God, that's it. Those are my people. But as you get older and you become an adult, you've gone your whole life with your parents trying to dampen that side of you down, because societally it's not really overly acceptable. You don't want to be the weird girl that's like, I'm a witch. It doesn't translate well into the workplace. But as almost being 37 years old, knowing who I am, I'm never ever dimming my light for anybody. So this is what I do. Spirituality and being a witch is who I am. I sell tarot readings. I practice my own cards every single day. I'm into crystals. I do candle magic. This is just Taylor Wilde turned up to 1,000. And I feel that I'm totally being authentic to myself. And that's why I think this transition has been really quite easy in the world of wrestling, because I think the fans can really pick up that I'm just being the truest version of myself.
And Taylor, obviously you mentioned you had a break, you had various, obviously you had one or two sort of children, and then you sort of came back into 10 years in terms. Did you always sort of keep yourself fit even in between those breaks? Were you always a gym goer? Did you go on bike rides? Did you go on walks? So was this, or did you have to, before you decided to come back into wrestling, did you have to put your body through a 6 month regime, dare I say, to get yourself back into that sort of mode of athleticism that you would need to take back into the ring if you hadn't made that sort of clean break?
So while I was off of wrestling, I've been a firefighter full time for almost 9 years. So if anything, I would actually say that I'm probably stronger, healthier, and mentally stronger than I was in my early 20s, just from life experience. So if anything, I've been on a perfect regime to be a professional wrestler for the past 10 years. So no, not a lot has changed, besides the fact that obviously I get into a wrestling ring more often. When I was off for 10 years, I wasn't training for wrestling, but I always say wrestling is like riding a bike. You never lose those skills. You just have to shake the rust off a little bit.
And Taylor, in terms of this match now, it's knockouts contenders match. It's like a fatal sort of four-way in terms of that sort of pinfall element. In terms of, you don't have to be involved in the decision in terms of being in terms of getting the decision, in terms of winning the match, but you can obviously be involved in decision, and the other two girls who are lucky might not be involved in that sort of decision. But you have elements of playing in these sort of matches before in terms of big experience. You had that Monsters Ball match against sort of Daphne in terms of high pressure sort of thing. So you obviously, experience won't be a problem for you in terms of this sort of element. Is it just a way of maybe opportunity strikes, being that sort of venom, being that sort of snake, that bit of viper in terms of that, having, say, 4 eyes in the back of your head, because it's a fatal 4-way match. You obviously need to have eyes everywhere, because you blink for a second and a pinfall could be going on right behind your back.
Yeah, absolutely. And more so, you have 4 women who are all hungry for the same thing, and that's the Knockouts title. And you also have 4 women who have very dark, very hard-hitting styles. And yeah, you can never let your guard down in a match like this. The only thing I would say that would give me the leg up is just simply veteran status. Nothing is my first rodeo as far as wrestling goes, but that can also be a detriment too, because maybe I'm going into this a little bit confident. Yeah, it's just never letting my guard down and just doing my thing, and it's going to be a great match no matter what, because we are all gunning for the title, and it's going to be complete chaos.
And obviously, you know an awful lot about Deonna Purazzo, and you know about Masha Slamovich, but maybe the wild card is Killer Kelly, coming from the UK and being Impact Wrestling now for the last 4 or 5 months. Your paths probably wouldn't have crossed an awful lot, and you probably wouldn't have been familiar about her in terms of the wrestling scene. Does she bring that sort of unknown elements to that sort of match that you might be wary? Obviously, you're very familiar with Donna and Tasha. Is it the unknown factor that sometimes the most dangerous factor?
Oh, absolutely. And she's got a bit of that, you always have to be worried about the ones who don't say a lot. And Killer Kelly doesn't say a lot. So, you should be worried about the quiet ones. She definitely has that element that if you push her a bit far, she'll become unhinged. So she's definitely the wild card in this match.
And obviously you have a vested interest, obviously, in the other match that's happening that night. Obviously you have the legendary Mickie James putting everything on the line against sort of Jordan Grace, and Jordan Grace is that opportunity to be a legend killer, dare I say, to be the one that takes Mickie out of Impact sort of wrestling as well. So obviously you're sort of intrigued at your own match, but obviously you're very much on a scouting mission as well, dare I say, in terms of that match.
Yeah, for sure. I keep saying, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm not getting any younger. So anybody in the Knockouts locker room, I have not had a moment to be in the ring with. I'm gunning for everybody. I want a piece. I think everybody in that locker room is so talented and has something different to offer. And Taylor Wilde wants a chance to make her little piece of Knockouts history in the second time of her title run, her second time in her career. So.
And what's it like, Taylor, coming around this time when you see Gail Kim in a sort of managerial sort of a role? You would have been so familiar with it. You see the likes of Velvet Sky now gone, being a commentator. You see Angelina Love in a different sort of capacity, in a different sort of ring. Madison Rain now, obviously, with AEW. So all the sort of familiar faces, Awesome Kong. So it's a sort of a new dressing room around. So you're probably coming into this dressing room saying the names you would have been so familiar in the past that you for are no sort of longer there, but you respect the sort of new wrestlers. But you can probably go around with your finger and name 5 girls that you probably have had wrestling matches with in the past, dare I say.
That's exactly right. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to come back to Impact, because it's a full locker room of new age women who are making history, and it's exciting. And, I still have gas in the tank, and I want to be that little piece of old school, just like with Mickie James, that can prove that age is irrelevant to work ethic and to talent. You don't have to trade your life to have a family. Mickie and I were both moms. We both, know what it is to have to sacrifice. And that's the Knockouts arguably have the strongest women's division in professional wrestling today.
And Taylor, you've always done the solo sort of element in terms of your career. Obviously, you've partnered twice. You've had 2 different partners when you became a two-time sort of tag team champion. But this sort of witchcraft element, does it give you the opportunity maybe later on to sort of develop a type of a faction under your sort of name, to develop a stable, something that Taylor has, maybe a leader of a group? Would that be something at this stage of your career that would sort of entice you, fascinate you? Because you've always played the lone card, the lone ranger sort of role.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more powerful than a woman, but a woman who has a following in numbers. So, what is a witch without her coven?
Mm, very, very true. Taylor Wilde, I'm going to turn it over to you now for the last 30 seconds. You might enlighten all our viewers. January the 13th, why they should tune in to Impact Wrestling, Hard to Kill, and on FITE TV. Obviously, I'm just going to run through the other matches for a quick second before I come to your match. Josh Alexander versus Bully Ray, Jordan Grace versus Mickey James, the Impact World Tag Team titles, Machine Guns versus Heath versus Rhino versus Major Players versus Austin and versus Chris Bay. Joe Hendry versus Moose in terms of the TV title, Jonathan Grisham versus Eddie Edwards. And for finally over to you, Taylor Wilde, in that knockouts contenders match between Keller Kelly, Deonna Purazzo, Masha Slamovich, and Taylor Wilde. What's our audience going to see?
Absolute carnage and chaos. It is Friday the 13th. You have 4 women who are in alignment with their dark feminine energy, and we are all gunning for the #1 contenders position to take a run at the Knockouts title. And for more on me, follow me on social media at Real Taylor Wilde. That's Wild with an E. And check out my podcast. It will be in its 5th season. We get Wild on Wednesdays. We're available on every major podcast platform as well as on YouTube.
On that note, Taylor Wilde, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening, and we wish you all the best, and hopefully it's a successful #1 contenders match, and no doubt as you're looking to become a 2-time Impact Starter champion. But for the moment, Taylor Wilde, stay safe, take care, and God bless.
Thank you. Lovely to meet you. Take care.
Take care, Taylor.
Bye-bye.